After leaving his house on a bicycle, a man named John arrives at work, where he works as a telemarketer. Struggling to handle a phone call, his boss, Mr. Tudor, criticizes him for poor performance and urges him to do better. John promises to work harder and gets back to his tasks. At the same time, his wife Alice comes home after a failed job interview. She's soon confronted by their landlord, Arnie, an old high school classmate who insists on collecting rent. Although Alice argues it's not yet due, she reluctantly writes him a check and asks him to leave. As Arnie exits, John arrives, and Arnie mocks him for riding a bicycle. Later that evening, Alice reviews their finances and realizes they're out of money. She tells John they need to take action, but despite their worries, the couple heads to a party hosted by Peyton, their wealthy and arrogant friend. At the party, they reconnect with their best friends, Louise and Chuck. The next morning, John and Alice realize they have no food at home and decide to go shopping with the little cash they have left. On the way, Alice shares her frustration about her failed interview, and John encourages her to keep trying. Suddenly, their car is hit by a truck, but they are unharmed. As John explains the situation to the police, Alice notices an old woman carrying a beautiful brass teapot into an antique store. Intrigued, she leaves the accident scene and follows her inside. Inside the store, Alice watches as the old lady places the teapot on a table in a back room. Before the woman returns, Alice pretends to browse the items on display. Moments later, John enters the store, puzzled, and asks Alice why she's there. She claims she wants to buy some antiques, leaving John confused since they don't have enough money. After the old lady gets distracted, Alice steals the teapot and runs out, showing it to John. He scolds her, but Alice says she was drawn to its beauty. The next day, while John is at work, Alice calls companies about job openings and hurts herself while straightening her hair. To her shock, the teapot produces money. She tries it again, and more bills appear. Realizing the teapot's power, Alice continues hurting herself for cash. John is fired from his job and comes home to find the house in disarray. Alice, bruised but insisting she's fine, shows him the teapot and explains it makes money when they hurt themselves. John doesn't believe it until she punches him and the money appears. Hesitant at first, John agrees to keep the teapot after Alice convinces him they can make a fortune. Alice wakes up to find John and the teapot missing, along with a note from him saying things would end badly. Angrily, she shouts. Meanwhile, John takes the teapot to the old lady's antique store, only to find it closed. He then decides to display the teapot at an antique roadshow, where the host admires it but knows nothing about its origins. Dr. Ling, watching the show, immediately recognizes the teapot and plans to meet John. John returns home, and he and Alice agree to keep using the teapot for money, but promise to stop if things get out of hand. They begin hurting themselves in different ways to generate more cash. Later, they decide to hide the money in the bathroom, as John warns against taking it to the bank to avoid suspicion. He also reveals they've made almost $200,000 from the teapot. The next day, they visit Alice's mother, Trudy, where her sister Mary and her family are also present. The visit goes smoothly until Trudy questions John's sudden wealth, but he and Alice explain it as a reward from a past investment. The next day, Alice tells John they're out of debt, but just as they start planning how to spend their money, two brothers, Gilad and Joel, show up. They attack John, claiming the teapot belongs to their grandmother, the old lady from the store. After they hurt him, Alice secretly gives them money, saying it's from the teapot sale. Later, John and Alice research the teapot at the library, learning it's dangerous. Alice hides a page about its consequences, and though John wants to get rid of it, Alice insists they can stop before things get out of hand. The next day, they buy expensive things and move into a luxurious house. At a party, Peyton is shocked by their new home, and Louise congratulates Alice, assuming she landed her dream job. Dr. Ling arrives shortly after, asking for the teapot, but they lie, saying they gave it away. Dr. Ling warns them they're in danger, but Alice slams the door. That night, Alice hurts John to make money from the teapot, and Arnie sees this. He barges in, questions them, then grabs the teapot and drives over it. When they check, the teapot is unharmed, leaving them stunned. They decide to find Dr. Ling for more answers. Alice and John track down Dr. Ling, who warns them the teapot has been around for centuries and can draw out anger, leading to disastrous consequences. He urges them to give it to him, but Alice refuses, believing they're good people. Days later, Gilad and Joel break in, demanding the teapot. They explain they didn't want it, but hoped John and Alice would make money so they could inherit it. After a confrontation, the brothers leave, and Alice is knocked out. The next day, with the teapot no longer producing as much money, that night, John goes to a club to pick a fight so that they can make some money. He gets hurt badly in the process, and by morning, Dr. Ling shows up at the house and tells him that the teapot is already controlling him and Alice. He also says things will soon start to get worse, and it's better they let go of it as early as possible. John is scared of all the things Dr. Ling tells him, but he's not ready to give up the teapot. Alice then realizes the teapot feeds off others' pain, so they visit hospitals and tattoo shops. After nearly hitting someone with their car, Alice realizes that emotional pain also fills the teapot and begins insulting John to make more money. Eventually, Alice admits to a past relationship with Arnie, breaking John's heart, and the teapot overflows with money. John confronts Arnie, and after a fight, Arnie touches the teapot, sensing its power. Alice snatches it back and leaves with John. Alice and John begin breaking the hearts of people they know to make money, starting with Ricky, Peyton's husband, and Mrs. Tudor, who learns about her husband's affair. They almost target Mary, but back off when Alice sees the sadness in her eyes. Alice insists they need a bigger score and suggests causing someone to suffer, but John disagrees, saying they need to return the teapot. Alice calls him a coward as he walks away. John meets Dr. Ling, who says the teapot must be willingly given to stop the deadly consequences, but Dr. Ling is willing to wait until it kills them. Later, Alice returns from having a bath and sees John holding onto the teapot as he sits next to the window. Alice begs him not to return it, saying she hasn't killed anyone yet. However, John says she'll cause someone to suffer if he doesn't do anything. Just then, he falls out of the window and lands badly on the ground. Alice immediately runs to see if he's okay, but she discovers he's unconscious. As she cries and hits him to wake up, promising that she'll return the teapot, he wakes up. That night, Alice and John leave the teapot in the living room and head to bed. The next morning, they discover that Arnie broke in and took it. Initially relieved, they soon reconsider and decide they need to return the teapot to Dr. Ling before it causes further harm. They go to Arnie's trailer and find signs that Arnie has begun harming himself for more money. Arnie appears, bruised and holding a weapon, threatening to hurt them for the teapot. A struggle ensues, and soon Joel and Gilad arrive, also wanting the teapot. In the chaos, Arnie is injured, and a tense standoff follows, leaving everyone else hurt. Alice and John, shaken but determined, gather the money and the teapot and hand it over to Dr. Ling, who thanks them for letting it go. Days later, Alice and John, now expecting a child, send money to Chuck and Louise and leave town to start fresh. Dr. Ling throws the teapot into the ocean as he returns to China. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please follow or subscribe, and don't forget to like, share, and comment. Your support means everything and helps me create more great content.